There's other good scientific evidence that a thought is a separate thing. In fact, a scientist called William Tiller showed that you could capture thoughts in a box, isolate them, send them somewhere else, and use this to affect a physical process. In the late 90s, Tiller, who was a Stanford University physicist, had been helping a California company develop a product to eliminate electromagnetic pollution. This product was a little black box, about the size of a remote control, and it had a crystal. It had very low energy. It was just like a microwatt's worth of power when it was turned on, and a read-only memory component. It also contained a crystal, and Tiller is an expert in the science of crystallization. Quartz was important in this little box because quartz is thought to modulate quantum information by rotating the direction of waves. Tiller had been carrying out a number of mind-over-matter experiments, and he'd formulated an entire theory about subtle energy in living systems. So he decided to take this little box and put intention to the supreme test. If thoughts were just another form of energy, what if he attempted to charge this little low-tech machine with a human intention and then try to use it to affect a chemical process? His experiment would rest on the outrageous assumption that thoughts can be imprisoned in a little bit of electronic memory and later released to affect the physical world. So Tiller tried a number of experiments with this little black box, and one was to affect the growth and development of fruit fly specimens. Tiller, being a scientist, had very specific instructions in his box. He decided to see if he could influence the production of a certain enzyme which helps in the energy metabolism with cells and is essential for the fly's larval development. It affects energy availability, which in turn affects an organism's fitness. So he got a group of experienced meditators together, and he asked them to send a very precise intention into this little box. They then wrapped it up in aluminum foil and sent it and a controlled box that had no imprinted information to a second lab in Minnesota, where Tiller had installed one of his graduate students. In Minnesota, the scientists then prepared several groups of 8 vials of fruit fly larvae and placed 3 of the groups of vials inside Faraday cages. That's equipment used in scientific studies to shield out electromagnetic radiation. They put both black boxes inside 2 of the cages with the vials and turned them on. So some of the vials were exposed to the imprinted black boxes and others to the controls. Over 8 months, they carried out experiments on 10,000 larvae and 7,000 adult flies. And when he got all of his data together, Tiller found that those larvae exposed to the imprinted devices developed 15% faster than normal. And once they'd reached their adult stages, they were healthier than normal, and so were their descendants. So intentions seemed to permanently affect the genealogical line. Tiller tried out these black boxes on the pH of water and the increase in the activity of a certain liver enzyme called alkaline phosphatase. In every instance, he got positive results. Tiller showed that a thought is a separate thing that can be sent elsewhere and can affect other things. But his work is also responsible for demonstrating that thoughts have a linger effect in the environment, changing a physical property of empty space. Tiller noticed after 3 months the results of his studies began to improve. The more he repeated them, the stronger and the quicker the effects. He started to try to isolate the aspect of the environment that had changed. He looked at the air temperature. He tried to measure pH of water in the lab. He did a number of things, and he found something really strange. A pattern was developing in the pH of water and the temperature. The temperature appeared to be going up and down according to a regular rhythm or oscillation. So that meant it was dipping and climbing at regular intervals. The same thing happened with the pH of water. And there seemed to be a pattern between the two. As the temperature in the air rose, the pH fell, and it just kept going in this kind of harmonic rhythm. So did other measurements. So it seemed like his lab had begun to manifest different material properties, like it was a specially conditioned or charged environment. And these effects seemed to continually increase. So Tiller wondered to himself, what exactly is going on here? And so then he started checking out the magnetic field of the space, and he discovered a bizarre conditioning. He found that there was a whole magnetic property of the space had changed. A basic property of physics had completely changed in that his whole space had turned into what's called a magnetic monopole. We ordinarily live in a magnetic dipole, which means that the magnetic influence is the same wherever you look. Here, his had been different. It changed in certain ways. And so the energy from intention appeared to charge the environment and create a strange domino effect of order. It's like the 0-point field had become more ordered and had produced changes in the tiniest elements of matter. And so it ended up adding up to a profound alteration in the very fabric of the physical reality of the room. This seems weird enough, but other scientists have witnessed this kind of charging of intention space. For instance, a researcher called Graham Watkins and his wife, Anita, recruited a number of participants and asked them to try to mentally influence mice under anesthesia to see if they could get them to revive more quickly than usual. In the first batch of studies, they got the experimental group to wake up 4 seconds earlier than a batch of controls. But in subsequent studies, the wake-up times of the experimental mice continued to improve with every study. Then they discovered the healing had some sort of linger effect. If a mouse were just placed on the spot on the table where another mouse had received this kind of intention, the second one would also revive more quickly than usual. So it seemed that the space had developed a healing charge, affecting anything that happened to occupy that space. Another study showed the same phenomenon. A Canadian study with Oscar Estebani, who was a famous Hungarian healer, showed that anytime he touched something, even a simple fabric, it would have this kind of phantom charge. The fabric could be, the material could be used for healing in place of his own healing hands. And of course, pair scientist Dr. Roger Nelson has looked at the whole idea of conditioned space at sacred sites. He's used those REG machines to see if there's some inherent quality about the site or whether it's been charged with an energetic resonance. He took REG machines around to various sacred sites like Wounded Knee, which is the site of the massacre of an entire Sioux tribe, or Devil's Tower in Wyoming, or the Queen's Chamber in the Great Pyramids of Giza. And his machines registered highly significant evidence of a kind of increased order, suggesting that a field consciousness gets created in one of these highly charged environments. It's almost like there's a lingering vortex of coherent energy.